All right, so I'm going to go through how to program the phazer light bar using just the buttons and wires. So just go through here what these different buttons do. The first button is the bank select, which is going to select which heads you're trying to program. The second button is the head enable, which is going to allow you to enable different heads on a specific flash pattern and turn off other heads. The next button is the phase button, which if you're in a flashing pattern is going to be able to tell which heads flash together and which heads flash opposite each other. The last button is the program button, which is primarily used for doing a factory reset, as well as some more advanced options, which we won't get into. So if I press my head enable button there, you'll see that the first LED there is blinking. If I press it again, you're going to see that the second LED is blinking. When the first LED is blinking, that means that I'm programming the front of the bar in color 1, which is generally going to be amber, blue, or red if you have a white width head on there. The second LED, which I've lit now, means you're going to be programming the front of the bar color 2, which typically would be the white color. Now if you have a red-blue head, it's going to be different than that. You have to look at the instructions. Okay, so if I have both LEDs flashing, it means I'm programming both colors on the front of the bar. If I have the third LED flashing, it's color 1 in the rear of the bar. If I have the fourth LED flashing, it's color 2 in the rear of the bar. And if I have both of those, it's both colors in the rear of the bar. If the whole thing flashing, I'm programming the whole bar. So I'm going to change the pattern on the whole bar, or I'm going to select all the heads to turn on, or I'm going to change whole bar's phase. It works the same for whatever you're programming. Okay, so I'm going to select color 1 in the front of the bar, which is the bottom, the way I have it sitting here. Then you need to take one of your wires, only one of the 12 enable wires, and enable it along with your giant red wire. Actually, I'm thinking I'm going to do this one instead. Okay, so this is a flashing program wire. So right now it's flashing most of the bar. So if I take my head enable, I've got my head enable, I'm going to do color 1 in the rear. If I then hit my head enable, you can see how it turned off some of the heads in the rear. And as I press this, it's going to cycle through a bunch of different options. Right now the whole rear is off. Of which heads you want. It's all listed in the manual as to what goes through, what order they go in. You really need to look at that though. Just press the button until you find what you like. So I can then change the front of the bar. Let me turn off the rear first. It's kind of distracting with all the stuff going on. Okay, so rear is off. So now I'm going to program the front of the bar. Okay, so head enable button, or I'm sorry, bank select button, which is the far left here. I'm going to go down here, color 1, and then I'm going to hit my head enable, which is the second button from the left. You can see how it is moving slowly inward. Then you get just the center ones, and then you get just the end ones. It kind of moves in a pattern. So once you have what you want, you don't have to do anything else. Just stop pressing buttons and it'll remember what you did. So let's say that I want to change my phase now. So I've got these alternating left to right. Let me turn on all the heads first. So if I want a shortcut to get to turn on and all the heads, I just hold this down and then release it after it flashes once. Okay, now everything's enabled. All right, so if I want to change the phase, I'm still programming just the front color 1, just the rear color 1 heads. So if I press the phase button, which is the third button here, you can see the first phase after that one was to change it to synchronous, all of them flashing together. You do notice that this is on a different pattern than these are on. That's why it looks a little different. You can program the patterns independently, just like I'm doing these. Okay, so that's how that works. Let's see, do we have any dual color heads on this bar? Yeah, so the front of this has some dual color heads. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off the rear of the bar by holding this down until it flashes 3 times. Okay, so now the whole bar is off. I'm going to go through and select the front color 2, which would be the white ones. And I'm going to turn those on. Okay, so now you see I've turned on the white ones flashing, and I can go through and change the phase. Okay, so now they're all simultaneously flashing. I can then turn on other colors with that if I want to. So if I want to change my bank to bank 1, and then turn on, so they've got both colors flashing. Now depending on your pattern, this may or may not look the best. If the pattern's too fast, it kind of whitewashes out the red or whatever color you have. So selecting a good pattern for what you're trying to do is key here. Okay, so now if I want to change the pattern on here, let's see. So if I want to change the pattern on both of them, I'm going to change my bank. So I'm programming the front, both colors. Then I'm going to find my red with green wire in here. Kind of hard to see with it being so bright. Here we go. So I'm going to find my red with green wire, and just like the buttons up here I was programming, I'm programming bank 1 and 2, the front 1 and 2. So I'm going to take my red with green wire, just like as if it was a button, and tap it to power. And as I do that, it'll cycle through the different pattern options for all the heads that I'm trying to program. Okay. So similarly, you can program anything that's a steady burn. There are some limitations. Any limitation you run into, you're going to need to use our computer-based programming system to do all the options. But a lot of the options are available using the buttons. All right, so here, obviously there's no phase with a steady burn pattern, but the bank select will still work, and so will the enable. So I'm going to turn on bank 3, which is the rear color 1. And then I'm going to enable whatever heads I want to enable here. So I can just cycle through that until I get whatever I want. It looks like I actually turned on the opposite color. So right now I've got 2 steady burn colors on. You don't generally want to do that. So if I select this one and turn this off, so 3 flashes always turns off what you got going on. Okay, so I'm going to go back to bank 1 here. All right, there we go. Now I'm enabling just the heads here. Okay. So yeah, let's find if there's a single enable wire for a single color on here, because that works a little bit differently. There's traffic director. So the traffic director, when you do the enables, you can only enable it to 6 or 8 heads. A traffic director with 4 heads just doesn't make any sense. Whenever there's 2, and that's one limitation of that. All right, so here's an end module that's it's ALE. So a limitation on this, if you go to, let's see, and you go to the front here, bank 2, which is white. So I'm going to move which head is enabled. You can't see that yet, but now you can see it's moving across here. So it's only enabling 1 head at a time. Some of them have off. So the flasher is enabled to do 40 different outputs. If your particular bar doesn't utilize all 40 of those, there will be some patterns or options that just don't do anything. So just cycle through that. So the limitation here is, unlike the other steady burn pattern, which you could program any of them or multiple of them to turn on, this one's designed for an ALE. So it's only allowing you to have 1 head on at a time. Now if you go into the computer program, you can override that limitation. It was just done for ease of programming using the buttons. so that's that. The other thing you can do is you can change the function of some of the wires, or quite a few of the wires. So if I have one of the wires programmed as an alley, I can make that a flashing wire, or a traffic director into a flashing wire, or a flashing wire into a traffic director, or dim, or some of those other options. That gets a little more complicated, and I don't think we're going to go into that today. But the one thing I do want to go into is how to set this to its factory defaults. So to do that, I'm going to disconnect all my enable wires, just have power and ground on here. And I take this button right here, and I am going to hold it until I flash once, and then twice, and then 3 times. Okay, so now whatever your bar was shipped when you bought it, that's what's going to be in there. So every bar is different because everybody orders slightly different bars. For troubleshooting purposes, another good thing is instead of holding it till it flashes once or 3 times, hold it till it flashes once. That's going to throw into there a default test pattern. So all the wires will do something. They're not going to probably do what you want them to do, but it's a good way of checking to make sure maybe you've got a wire in the wrong place, or a pinched wire, or a bad head, and you're not sure if it's a flasher or the head, or the flash pattern got changed when you're playing around with it. So that's one way to troubleshoot that. Okay, so that's all I have for today.